All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Crossing Swords. As always, I'm Andrew.
And I'm here to point out the little Easter egg there. That's something you may not have picked up on.
No, it was subtle.
It was subtle.
Yeah.
It was another episode of Crossing Swords. That extra another.
I'm not
going to throw you under the bus. To quote Ash, and I've said this before, it's one of my favourite quotes of his, you were already lying in the road, I just didn't tell you when the bus was coming.
Yeah.
You know?
I messed up, guys. Me and Jake have just sat here for 10-15 minutes riffing and having a good time.
I don't want to brag, but it was probably the best intro we've ever done.
Best intro we've ever done.
And I'm not just saying that because it's lost in the annals of history and no one will ever know it.
No.
It's up there.
But I didn't hit record.
No, we were not recording. we were not recording.
So this is take two of this episode. Luckily, we hadn't got into it.
Despite the ethos of the podcast being like two guys having a chat, and you know you're invited to join us on that chat.
Yeah.
On this occasion, we were actually just two guys having a chat
with microphones that weren't recording anything.
Nothing.
But so just from the bottom of my heart, I'd like to say,
forgive me.
Have you ever been to Peppa Pig World?
I don't think we've got that one anymore, bro.
No, but I'm just asking. Have you ever been to Peppa Pig World?
I haven't been to Peppa Pig World.
It's marvellous. So I hear comes highly recommended from our former Prime Minister.
Yeah, no, we haven't got that anymore, I'm afraid.
Shame.
Got rid of it.
I didn't want it. I just,
I didn't think it would be relevant again.
No, who'd have thought such cock-up still existed post Boris Johnson?
But yeah, it's your mum's birthday.
Yeah, we're doing that again. It is my mum's birthday.
It
is my mum's birthday.
You're doing the right thing and you're here.
Yes, as I said before.
For the people.
First thing she asked for was to go and leave her alone for a bit.
Yep.
And I duly obliged. She's getting a shout on the pod.
Yep.
Happy birthday, Marge.
So, happy birthday. Am I allowed to say her name?
Yeah, she's not my wife.
Caroline. No, but it's personal.
Caroline.
You might not want people knowing. I did just
very
get that
popular
right,
name in popular music, that isn't it?
Caroline.
Yeah, sweet Caroline.
Need a golden calculator to divine.
Pretty sure there's another one with Caroline in it, but
I don't know. Sweet Caroline.
Yeah, sweet Caroline. You don't get any Jakes in popular music.
It's one syllable though, isn't it? So
yeah.
Other
than like Jake the Peg, but we can't do that anymore because
Jake the Peg.
I heard that song from someone who's very much not to be trusted.
What's Jake the Peg?
Jake the Peg, dear lead with his wooden leg. I nearly said extra leg again. That's a different. It's just because it was Rolf Harris that I heard it from.
Am I supposed to know what this is?
You know Jake the Peg?
I don't.
Well, there's a Jake. There you go, Jake the Peg.
Was it a TV show?
No, it's just a song from Rolf Harris.
Well, that's something we should be
avoiding.
Yeah, I don't think we should deal with.
I mean, I don't think he's going to sue us from where he is. Luckily.
Would you have him on the pod?
On this pod?
Yeah.
God, no.
I don't want him in my mum's house.
No, think of what he might do to the... I mean, you've got nephews.
Yeah, I mean, I probably wouldn't have them here at the same time as Rolf Harris.
But he's a celebrity, then I want to meet him.
I've got to admit, I probably wouldn't.
He's prison Rolf now.
I don't want to be a part of a pedo rehabilitation
What would you
program.
do if he came out and he would just like full skinhead, tats on the neck?
I think he's just going to get stabbed, isn't he?
Well, he hasn't been yet. Not as far
yeah,
as
but
I'm
that's
aware.
because they like to look after. Because he's high profile, he's probably being looked after and hidden away.
I didn't have us talking about Rolf Harris on the intro of the pod.
That wasn't the path we were on anyway.
No.
The first,
can I just say the first
we were in
intro
a
had
completely different flow.
Nothing to do with.
No, we talked
Rolf
about
Harris.
marrying each other's mums, and other stuff
Step
that
kids.
I can't even remember now.
What age would you call your? What age would you start calling your step parent, mum and dad, if you were an adult?
That's a good point. We didn't actually put a number on that. I think, bearing in mind, people didn't hear any of this.
Is it better without context?
I think that probably stops at 18. I think 17 you could get away with it. 18, like you're an adult now. Don't call me dad.
Oh, that's your rule. And like as the incoming parent, that's your thing.
I mean, no. Look, if anybody I'd help, it depends how long you raised them for. Like, if you've
that's the
moved
thing.
in,
Once you're an adult, you didn't raise them.
Like,
they didn't raise you.
If you move in when they're 17, and it's a couple of years on, I don't know. But, I think
you're still probably all right then. But when you come in as a
comfortable
adult, like you said, that I think you've hit the nail on the head. if they've not raised you, I don't think you feel
No.
any
But like, I can absolutely
parental
understand.
thing towards them.
I had a friend once that had a stepdad, and he'd had him as his stepdad since he was like quite young. So he considered him.
Yeah.
He was like, no, that guy is my dad.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, absolutely, he is your dad.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think
it's about whether they've raised you or not.
yeah. So yeah, that was a very weird intro.
It was, and there was a more context and preamble in the first one to that.
Yeah.
Oh, not a lot.
No, there never is. Someone actually commented on one of our videos recently saying this is ADHD, the podcast.
How dare they?
But then sometimes when I listen back to us, like, I'll be in the middle of because you talk quite quickly and you're like,
Yeah, sorry, I'm
information,
trying to slow it
information.
down. I'll try.
And I'm like far more ponderous and I take a bit of time.
You're
and the amount of times when I'm listening to it, it might take 15 minutes for me to make a point around discussions me and you end up having, because I'll say something and that makes you go, oh, fact. And then, or like,
yeah, did you hear? Do you know?
Yeah. So it's quite funny to listen to because it's, but sometimes, to be honest with you,
You persist though.
Considering like how I keep it in my head, I'm quite pleased with
You persist.
Unluckily, in the
Credit
football,
where it is due.
unfortunately, in the football episode, that meant I just kept talking about Man City.
Fucking didn't we? Oh my God, I've never spent so much in my life.
Honestly, when you guys said something, I was like, what the fuck is their problem? And then when I
Did you listen back?
I was like, all right, no, I literally spent about 40 minutes bringing it back to Man City.
Like, I've never spent as much time. Bear in mind, we've done whole episodes dedicated to one topic.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever spent that much of my life discussing one thing.
Yeah. The thing was, though, like, this is me defending it very quickly.
Do.
It was the biggest part of the season in reality. It was a team that won the treble.
Well, it was
the
for
second time
City.
that had ever happened. No, but it's big for English football. And like, there was a lot to talk about. Is Pep the best manager in the world? Is Haaland the best player in the world? Do you know what I mean? That was all that. So that's what I was trying to do. But yeah.
It did just come back. It read quite
We
funny.
ended up somehow spending half an hour talking about Man City.
Well, we were very much driven by one participant.
You guys just got to be stronger in that situation and be like, big if you mention City one more time. We're walking out.
You know, I was fine with it. Apart from the fact that I complained about it.
Yeah. But then you complain about most things, so.
I do complain about a lot.
Yeah.
As Sean Locke said, you know, I don't like or dislike a certain thing. I just like moaning.
Yeah, sometimes a good moan is good.
Agreed.
Do you know what I mean?
Agreed. Speaking of things to moan about.
I don't know whether it's things to moan about. I wanted to talk about something. I went and saw
Good,
a
because this would be
film
really bad if we had nothing.
a week ago, and I'm not entirely sure. Like, I've got no structure to what I want to try and.
What compelled you to go and watch this film, by the way?
It was my sister, to be honest with you. She'd seen an interview with Donald Trump with a podcast. I can't remember what it was called, but he'd been to see, and they were promoting this film, The Sound of Freedom. It's massive in America. And Trump went to the premiere and then afterwards had an interview about it. And it was a bit of a weird interview because they started basically praising him for building the wall and wanting to build the wall, because their argument was child trafficking between America and South America is really bad. And one of the main ways they come across is just straight across the border. So like building the wall actually helps prevent some of that trafficking in their eyes. You can debate that, but that was their
argument.
That was their. I have no wish to defend that.
No,
but he basically just sat there like, yes,
I'm great.
That's exactly,
aren't I great? Yeah.
And like it was like, yeah, fine, that might have been an outcome of it, but that is not why he did it, and he doesn't deserve praise for it. But basically, and then from that, my sister, I think, watched the trailer. She sent me it, and I was like, yeah, it looks decent, to be fair. And we ended up just going to see it.
Did you guys sit together?
Yeah, with her husband as well. And basically, it's a film about child trafficking.
But not a fun summer romp, just to be clear.
No, it is an incredibly heavy film, and it's based around the story of a father and his two children, and his children get stolen, and then his attempts to get the children back, and that then centres around a American agent called Tim Ballard, who sets about trying to find them. or he sort of stumbles across their story through his work, stopping paedophiles, catching paedophiles and paedophile rings. And like, it's an incredibly heavy film. It was incredibly difficult to watch. Like, it's one of those where it affected me for like a couple of days afterwards. Like, it weighed very heavy on me. And it was why, like, I think we recorded a podcast the next day. I just didn't touch it. I was like, I'm not really in the mood to talk about it.
Well, I'm trying to give it the due diligence by not saying much here.
Yeah.
And just letting you.
No, but please feel free to interject.
I mean, what am I going to interject with? I disagree with paedophilia and child trafficking.
I should hope so.
I do, just in case, because I realised I raised it as a question.
Yeah.
But I do.
Yeah, good. So do I.
Well, that's that then.
But I don't want to spoil the film for anyone, because I do think people should go and see it. But it was incredibly heavy. It was one of those films where I'm glad I saw it, but also wish I hadn't, to a degree. And it's not particularly graphic. It's not like gratuitous in any way. It's just uncomfortable, and it's based on a true story. So the sobering feeling when you're sat there of going, oh fuck, this shit actually goes on. And at the end of the film, they show real footage of people having their children snatched and how rife it is, and then they gave quite a sobering stat at the end, which was that there are more people in slavery now than when slavery was legal, which I had no idea.
Yeah, well, I saw an interesting stat, and I don't remember it. I do apologise, but it said how many people in the world, a percentage of the world, are victims of modern slavery, and it's higher than you think. It really is, and it was also. Then obviously it goes into people that are victims of trafficking, and obviously the most obvious and harrowing stat is that 87% or something, no, 83% of women that are trafficked, including young girls that are trafficked, end up being victims of sexual abuse.
Yeah. But I can't seem to find them now, because originally I screenshotted some stats because I focused mainly on our country. Because afterwards I was like,
what
right,
screenshots
so
have you got? How
well,
do they juxtapose against the?
Oh, here we go. I found it. So the International Labour Organization estimated that 50 million people were living in modern slavery in 2021. In 2022, 7,019 children were identified as trafficked in England and Wales. Many children are trafficked into the UK from abroad, but children may also be trafficked around the UK. Recent figures show that at least 10 children are trafficked every week in the UK. And the most common types of trafficking are sex trafficking, forced labour, servants, forced marriage, forced crime, or organ harvesting. And the forced labour one, we have quite a famous example in this country of Samo Farah.
Yeah.
Who apparently was trafficked here and forced to work in someone's home.
Yeah. It's worrying how prevalent it is.
Yeah, it's incredibly scary. And like watching it, it was how like widespread it is as well. But like I don't really know what you can do about it. Because the thing is, it's as long as there's criminal gangs, there's going to be trafficking. As long as there's desperate people trying to get to other places, there's going to be trafficking. But like the paedophilia thing, man, I don't understand. Like, obviously, I don't understand it. But like, why so many people are paedophiles? Do you know what I mean?
Or child abusers, anyway.
Yeah, I just don't get it. Like,
no, me neither.
I don't understand the appeal of it. Like, and not all of these people are rich and powerful, so it's not the whole, you know, they're doing it because they can sort of thing. I don't know. Is it something that's just wrong in the wiring of these people? Is it something you're born with? Like, I just don't.
I think it's part of it is, whilst I could, and perhaps even do, concede the argument that you can't help what you're attracted to, what you can do is help whether you act on it or not.
Yeah.
You know morally whether something's right or wrong.
Yeah.
So acting on it indicates a sense of I don't think for the most part it indicates a sense of this urge is too strong and I'm controlled by the sickness. I think for the most part it is a sense of power. It's a sense of, well, that's your morality, those are your rules, I'm going to do what I want to do in a really selfish and power exerting way. I think
it's possible. I think some of the people will be psychotic. I think there'll be all sorts of things. I think there'll probably be different reasons for all of them, but yeah, it's just fucking grim. But despite all of that, I would genuinely recommend seeing the film Sound of Freedom.
Do a double, that and Barbie.
Yeah, do Sound of Freedom first though, then go in and watch Barbie just to completely distract yourself. But what was sad as well though was we went to an Empire cinema.
Yeah.
And they're going into administrations. It was quite a depressing
Are
experience.
they?
Yeah.
I quite like the Empire cinema.
Yeah, I have shares in Empire as well.
Well, I'm glad I do. Do you actually?
I do actually. Not many.
Sell.
It's too late. That ship sailed.
It's gone.
I've had shares in them, and literally when I say shares, I mean like a $5's worth of shares. That I spent £25 on shares like 3 or 4 years ago, and I've just never done anything with it. I have shares in Premier Foods, BT.
I tried to buy shares in things that I tried to look up.
Do
companies.
I have to declare that as I'm someone who talks about?
Only if you tell. It's a conflict of interest.
Do you know what I mean? I can't ever talk about BT. Don't ever say anything bad about Mr. Kipling, because otherwise we'll have to throw.
Bro, I never would. Look at me.
You should.
Do you think I say bad things about? I'm such an excellent cake maker.
Thank you.
Exceedingly good. They are exceedingly good. I tried to look when I bought shares. I tried to look for like companies that are making batteries for electric cars and stuff that I thought are likely
clever,
to be.
Man. That's really. Why aren't you sharing that sort of shit?
Because none of them worked. I'd say none of them are doing well.
Ash is one of those people. He invests and like bets on stuff, and he's like, "Oh yeah, just one, like however much." I'm like, come on, bro. Like,
where was the love?
Where's the love? And he's just like, oh, he doesn't really give an answer.
Tell you who I got shares in who are actually doing surprisingly well.
Yeah.
EasyJet.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
there was literally that like COVID drop.
I was going to say,
but the recovery has been excellent.
How much have you got
wise.
invested? Like mine's
like total
a joke investment.
Yeah, it is a joke investment. Like total, it's about. I think I put about 50 quid in,
okay,
and all in all, I think they're worth about 80 at the moment.
Yeah, I think I have,
which is not bad, like percentage wise.
3 or 4 shares in Cineworld.
Yeah. Okay.
No, not Cineworld. Yeah, in Cineworld, they're fucked as well. I honestly thought in my head, because I remember, like, I think I did it at the start of COVID, and I was like, post-COVID,
this is going
to go up. There's no way it goes bad. And then yeah, it's just.
Well, they're all presumably being affected by the write strike, because there's very few new movies on the horizon.
That's true. I hadn't thought of that.
What are they going to show in like 2-3
years
years from now?
Business.
I'm only speculating, but I would think
Premier Foods, it's doing all right. It's doing all right. Not enough to cover my losses on everything else, but
it's something.
It's fine.
It's a little win to keep
went
you
up
going.
Slightly because apparently they got taken over.
Yeah, well, they did a merger, didn't they? They get taken over?
I think they got taken over
because they've rebranded.
Oh, have they?
All their TV packages, TNT. Yeah,
that's fair. But yeah, I'm just finger on the pulse of business. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm in deep for £25.
How many businesses that you're invested in do you think are invested in child trafficking?
Oh, Premier Foods wouldn't have anything.
No,
they're
above that.
No, Mr. Kipling employees.
Mr. Kipling has never trafficked a child.
No, like honestly, Premier Foods sells like shitloads of stuff, man. It's like Bisto, it's all sorts, like quite a lot of British names.
I can't like a lot of that stuff.
Yeah,
I might look into that.
You should.
But if they're up, I don't know. Are they going to keep going up?
I don't think it's too expensive to buy in. Do you know what I mean?
No.
Oh,
I might look into that.
Yeah, you should.
I'll never remember.
No, my people will contact your.
My people would appreciate that.
I'll get my financial advisor to call your.
My financial advisor would appreciate.
So I'll just get Tony to call Dave.
That would be grateful. I would be.
You know, especially now that they.
Could your people also remind me to remind them that they're our financial advisors?
Yeah,
just to make sure they know.
Yeah,
what's expected of them. Yeah,
they know. We don't need to have the conversation. Do you know what I mean?
I think I know why. Yeah,
because of the implication. I mean, maybe we can't afford Tony, but we can definitely afford Dave.
just
Knowing Dave, he's probably still training.
all
Do you
we,
know what I mean?
all
Every
we-
time I speak,
all we
to
need
Dave,
to
he's
do,
like, got another exam to do. I'm like, how many are there? Like,
not to boil Dave down to one stereotype, but all we need to do is tell him that our workplace is clothing optional, and I feel like he would
he'd
work
be
for any
involved.
wage.
Yeah, absolutely.
No wage.
Sorry, I can't stop playing with my sword.
You were fiddling around with your sword a lot.
Yeah,
Did it feel nice, powerful?
always.
Was that for protection? Did you think you might get trafficked? That you picked
Yeah.
up the sword for protection?
Yeah.
I'm not going to traffic you,
There's
bro.
never a bad time. Look, you come round here wearing Hawaiian shirts, claiming it's your mum's birthday. It's a very sketchy situation.
Sketchy story. The dots don't add up.
They don't. Last week
Who
there
even
was a
says I have a
goatee.
mum?
This week there isn't. Like, it's
Was
too
last week my
much change.
go-to week?
Yeah,
Yeah,
last week
when I
was
was
your
ill.
go-to week. Exactly. Last week you were unwell. You're being seen going around supermarkets wearing masks. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of researching sketchy stuff on the internet, like bomb making. There's just a lot of stuff you need to be careful of.
Yeah, and I'm one of them.
Yeah,
Anyway,
yeah.
I've got what that your. Weirdly, I've just realised that your thing about sex trafficking.
My thing.
So it's child
Let's
trafficking.
just rephrase that slightly. I'm not into sex trafficking.
Your discussion topic of a film you recently saw about trafficking.
Yeah.
Better? Happier with
That's
the
much
wording?
better.
Okay. Actually leads quite nicely into something I thought we could talk about,
Okay.
which is the Danny Masterson case.
Danny Masterson.
So
You'll
Danny
have to
Masterson
familiarise me.
is an actor who played a stoner character in that 70s show.
Okay.
And he was a part of the Church of Scientology.
Okay.
And he has recently been convicted on 2 out of 3 cases of rape.
Wow. Okay.
Now, what's interesting about it, so the third case, and I'm simplifying it, I appreciate that. They basically said it was his partner at the time who said he groped her in her sleep, and they sort of said, well, you know, you were together at the time, so it's, you know, we're not going to quite count it as, yeah, we're not going to convict you on it. But he did get found guilty of 2 counts of rape back in about 2002, I think they dated back to.
Okay.
And part of the thing around it was he was said that he was trying to use his influence in the Church of Scientology to warn them off, water them off, reporting it. Anyway, it's been reported. And just before sentencing, 4 people wrote letters to the judge asking for leniency. Now, he was handed, I don't know if it's the maximum term, but it's up there. He was handed a 30-year sentence.
Okay.
And so the four people, there probably were more, but were the 2 people who played the parents on that 70s show, and Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis.
Okay.
Now, Ashton Kutcher,
Oh, I saw something on Twitter that said they apologised for writing letters or something.
well, Ashton Kutcher kind of walked away from Hollywood a little bit. There's a reason you don't see him acting many films now.
Yeah.
It's because he dedicates most of his time
To charity work, isn't it?
around child trafficking.
Yeah.
Like, that's literally his thing. He's
Yes.
gone
I've
all in
seen
on
he,
it.
He addressed it at Congress, didn't he?
yeah, no, he's been really
or in
involved
the
in
Senate,
it.
or
But so for someone who's so keen on human rights,
Yeah.
human autonomy and stuff, and the letter, I mean, it's quite funny. It just sort of says, look, Danny always showed up on time. He was always sober. You know,
yeah.
and it's like, bro, what? But, yeah, they then came out and apologised, and their apology was basically them saying, look, that letter was meant for the judge. You were never meant to see that letter.
Do you think they were lent on?
Well, here's the thing. So, Danny Masterson's partner at the time, so his ex-partner, who was one of the claimants, I'm not sure what you'd call victims.
Yeah, victims.
But she was in this particular case. She was one of the people that it was being alleged against. She sort of came out and said, "Don't think that I don't remember about like you guys. I mean, Ashton Kutcher. There was this whole thing where she literally made a reference without saying. She said, I remember this time in like February 2002 when you called Danny and, you know, you were panicking and freaking out and he helped you. And if you Google Ashton Kutcher February 2002 or whatever, it comes up as this story where Ashton Kutcher was going out on a date with a girl and he turned up to her apartment and she'd been murdered. And he was worried about reporting it because he was like, "Oh, I put my hand on the doorknob, like my handprint is all over that thing." And that, like, so the implication there is very much she's saying, "You killed her, and Danny helped you cover it up." And the Mila Kunis, it's very odd, the Mila Kunis thing, because she lied about her age on that 70s show.
Okay.
So she was only like 15 or 16 when they started filming that show. And yet she was dating in the show. She was dating Ashton Kutcher's character.
Okay.
And she's spoken about it before, and she was quite, in early interviews, she was quite dismissive of it. But it kind of paints this picture of a really toxic environment where she was like, yeah, the writers just make me kiss. Because they were like, "You've kissed every character on this show." And she was like, yeah, the writers for some reason just enjoy that. And she's quite dismissive of it. And it's like, no, that's creepy.
Yeah.
Because you're like 16 years old. And when she was dating Ashton Kutcher and they did their first kiss, and they've discussed it, they had the interview on screen. And again, it's quite an early interview where they were saying, basically, and they both confirmed that Danny Masterson had bet Ashton Kutcher $20 or $10, depending on which two of them you believe, because they both claim a different amount, that Ashton would French kiss her. And this is like her first kiss
and she's
ever.
15.
She's like 15, 16 at the time. He's like 20 or whatever.
Grim,
and he's he's taking a bet on trying to stick his tongue in like a 15-year-old's mouth kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it just screams of this toxic thing. And Topher Grace came out of it really well.
Doesn't look good for Ashton Kutcher though, either, does it?
It's really odd behaviour for someone who's dedicated. And there's interviews as well where he's, when he was in that punked era, which I'm starting to forget was even a show, but it was huge.
Never really a thing over here though, was it?
No.
I don't. I think we were slightly too young for it as well.
But I remember there's this interview where he was talking about like young actresses, like Natalie. No, it wouldn't have been Natalie Portman, but it was someone like that kind of type of actor.
It could have
an
been
attractive.
He did a film with her.
No, but an attractive actress, and he's like, "There's one we're all waiting for to turn 18." And you're like, "Bro, that's not." But I believe in the ability of people to change and grow. Yeah. So now that he's dedicated his life to
it's difficult because as blokes, we all at times say creepy shit that looking back on, you might go, probably wouldn't say that again, or might feel differently now.
But like I said, I believe in the ability to grow. So him dedicating his life now, he's a married man, he's a family man.
I mean, like, look, something might have happened to him, or like he might have found out, like this Danny Masterson thing could have been a big reason he's gone the other way.
But then would you go and defend him?
It's difficult. I mean, that screams to me someone
got dirt. And
like from the letter he sent them, from your description, that sounds very much like I don't want to say anything nice about him. Do you know what I mean? I'm just going to say the best things I can without praising him.
But Topher Grace came out of it really well.
Who's
the whole of Grace? Topher Grace, you will probably know best. So he was the star of that 70s, he was the main character. Okay. But you will probably know him best from playing Eddie Brock in the Spider-Man movies and the Sam Raimi movies.
Yeah. I know exactly who you mean.
So he walked away from that 70s show, claiming that he wasn't really enjoying it, claiming that, also doing that thing with like, I want to do something different. I don't want to be typecast, but also saying, it's not somewhere I enjoy being.
No.
Apparently he was the only one, again, this is all a bit of he said, she said, but apparently he's the only one that didn't like bow down to, worship at the altar of Danny Masterson. Okay. And apparently he was the only one.
Is he the one with the throwish sort of curly hair?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can picture him in my head.
Yeah.
Sunglasses all the time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was the one
I don't think I ever watched that show, but I can...
Well, Mila Kunis again has been interviewed saying that whenever she said if she ever said good morning to Topher, or say hello around the set, she would be given the cold shoulder by Danny and the little gang for the rest of the day. Because there was like a real rift. They really didn't like each other.
Okay.
And obviously now this has come out.
So
it's all kind of like...
It just sounds like Danny Masterson isn't a particularly nice person and clearly quite damaged.
The other people that wrote letters of defence, by the way, were his family, which is a bit more understandable. It's still not right.
No, it's difficult.
But it's a bit more understandable.
Like in my family, we've had discussions about like, how would you react to that sort of thing? Like mainly talking about people like Prince Andrew and like what the Queen should have done. So like what we would do. And like I tend to agree with my sister, like if that comes out about your family member, they're no longer your.
Well, I was just
going
to say, even family member. What would you do if it came out? I was accused. I was found guilty in the court of law. It went to court.
I'd ask
even
you,
if I said to you,
I'd want to look you in the eyes and go like,
even if I said to you,
happened?
I didn't do it. I didn't do it. It's a misunderstanding, but it went to a court of law, and it was like, no, you did it.
Yeah.
I know it's difficult. It's
I think it would
hypothetical.
have to depend on what you like, the severity of what you've done was. If it was the same as Danny Masterson, I'd be like, look, what the fuck happened? And like, they finally caught you. But I'd be like, no, I'd want to look you in the eyes and be like, see what you said.
Well, this is
and then I would then I would probably try and attend the case or like the court case to be like, what's going on, and
would you want
see the evidence and what they're presenting.
Would you want to? And obviously, it's hard because you don't want to put them through their trauma. But would you want to speak to the victim?
No, because it wouldn't be my place to. I'd like to hear what they had to say. Obviously,
yeah. I don't necessarily mean.
I wouldn't want to have a one-to-one with them, but I'd listen to what they'd have to say in court. But if I was convinced you were guilty, it'd be dead to me. Do you know what I mean? I'd have to get rid of everything of the podcast.
Shame.
Which would be quite sad.
Should we make a pact not to rape anyone?
Pinky promise?
Pinky promise.
No raping,
no
bro.
raping.
No raping.
Now let's just define the terms of that. Let's just,
Unconsensual sex, bro.
Damn it. No, do you know what though? You can do like, it's a kink, isn't it? Consensual non-consent.
Yeah, there was a girl I met online once.
Because I kept seeing it online. It was CNC.
Okay.
And I was like, I don't know what CNC. And I had to, my good old friend.
Is that basically where they pretend
Urban
to be?
Dictionary. Yeah, the fantasy of rape.
Yeah.
But it's consensual.
There was a girl I met online before.
Oh, yes, you said.
And she wanted to like take things further. And then she asked me what my kinks were. And I told her. And then I asked what hers were. And she didn't say consent, non-consent, but she said, I
have this rape fantasy.
Yeah. And I was like, what do you mean? And she was like, so for example, I'd like you to come around my house. I'll leave the door open. Come in. And she's like, I'll scream. And I was like, no. Like on this immediate, I was like hard. I stopped talking to her. I was like, no.
You don't want to kink shame, but it's a hard turn off.
It's hard to understand
someone screaming
why
stop.
Someone would want that. And like, that's not how I get down, man. Like, that's not how Big Daddy Big plays. Do you know what I mean?
I just thought it was interesting to see.
What about you?
What if it came out that you did it? I think, because here's the thing, I think we do struggle. We think, but they're always so whatever in my company. You know, I never see that side of them, but you wouldn't. You're not the victim.
No.
So.
No, but I'd like to think, like, for me and you, for example, we've been around each other in romantic situations and we've seen how each other behaves drunk. Like, we've seen each other in a lot of different states. Do you know what I mean? So, like, my instinct reaction if I heard that about you would be like, well, I've never seen any behaviour that would even, like, make me think that was a possibility. Now, that doesn't mean it's impossible, but my instinct reaction would be not to believe it.
My instinct reaction would be to not believe it, but then I'd have to stop and think, well, am I just doing that thing where I'm defending my friend without actually thinking, without believing the victim, without... There is no easy answer.
Yeah.
Because it's so traumatizing in a way for all parties. Obviously, the most trauma is for one specific party.
No, but it's not something that does get talked about a lot, is what's left of the family that person was involved with. Do you know what I mean? Like, what happens to their mum, their dad, their brothers, their sisters? Do you know what I mean? Like, they have to live with that being attached to their name for the rest of their lives. And they've not done anything.
No.
So, yeah, not nice.
No, not nice, but really odd behaviour to be writing letters of leniency. I mean,
that does make you... The fact that, like, 2002, a girl died.
Oh, the Ashton Kutcher accusation, yeah.
And you know me, I don't mind a conspiracy.
No, you do like a conspiracy. When
dots connect like that, it does... like a bell goes off in the back of my head.
It makes you question it.
Danger. But yeah, no, that's dodgy, isn't it? Like, I just, I don't. I had a thought about like conspiracies because after we talked about I can't remember what episode it was. It was a few ago, and you can go back and listen to that when we talked about I think like vaccines and other
Excellent
stuff
plug.
and like
literally just a couple of episodes to get the pack. Yeah.
But like with conspiracy, I don't actually think you need everyone to be in cahoots for a conspiracy to exist. I just think you need what we have in most areas, which is people out for
self-preservation.
themselves. Yeah, people at the top of organisations at all levels in all countries, like just out for themselves and on the take. And I think that's all it takes for like shit to start going sideways. People not to be paying attention, not to actually be doing the job or providing the service they should be providing. And when for 13 years we've been on a steady stream of like shitty politicians doing worse and worse things, culminating in Boris Johnson, who just believed he could do and say, act and promote whoever the fuck he liked and do whatever he liked. Pretty certain he was coked up like a maniac while he was in office. Like there wasn't a surface near his office that didn't have cocaine
on the surface. Yeah,
like fuck me. And that man was the most popular prime minister we've had probably since Winston Churchill until it all went tits up. Do you know what I mean? Like in terms of like the level of victory he was able to pull off,
it was big.
It's all like, as I said to you, I think he's underrated. Like
but
being that coked
like
up and
I said to you,
deranged.
I think that was because of the timing of it. I think that was the single biggest issue election we've ever had.
Yeah,
I don't think normally in elections there's one or two things.
That man
but that was
he's the one to solve.
No,
it.
I'm with you. But I think that.
But that's why he's almost impressive.
That election
do you know what I mean?
had nothing to do with the people.
Yeah,
almost, not quite.
Also,
almost
Jeremy
nothing to do with the people
Corbyn for
inside.
some reason had a massive part. Like for some reason, someone going like, "Look, we can just do a lot more for a lot more people." Do you know what I mean?
It didn't sit well.
It just didn't sit well with people, and
he did come under a bit of a character assassination, but he didn't help himself.
No, like look, the anti-Semitism stuff definitely didn't help. I just think he was also into a no-winner in his own party, so I don't think even if he'd have got elected, I don't think he'd have been prime minister very long. But no, like fucking the downward turn we've been on, it just leaves you, and it's it's a good segue into another subject I'd like to talk about, which is Labour apparently it's been around for a while. They've been talking about their new deal for workers. Have you listened to any of it? The speech
I haven't listened to anything. I read the bullet points of what they want to introduce. I agree with all but one in principle.
Yeah, I saw you tweet about it.
Yes, and that is available. I am on private Twitter.
Is going to be, if it loads nicely for you, is a clip of. That didn't work, did it?
No, once again, you've not actually synced it to the thing.
Bluetooth. It used to do it automatically, and now it doesn't. There we go. We're connected now.
We're connected to all of our listeners.
Right, let's try this again.
A ban on 0-hour contracts, an end to fire and rehire, family-friendly working, strengthened sick pay, making it available to all workers, including the lowest earners, and from day one. We'll go faster and quicker to end the gender pay gap, address unequal pay, tackle sexual harassment at work and put mental health on a par with physical health. And we'll bring in a proper living wage that people can actually live on. A ban on...
So what did you think, Jake?
Yeah,
I know literally it immediately starts off with the bit you don't like.
Was the one that I disagree with.
Yeah.
The ban on 0-hour contracts.
I think they'll be realistic on it because, as you said, there are a lot of people that rely on the flexibility of a 0-hour. So I imagine there might be an opt-in scenario.
An alternative.
Yeah.
But I do realise, I do appreciate it's being used to exploit a lot of workers.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I know a lot of people who either are on or have been on 0 hours contracts and it worked for them, it benefited them. Yeah. In fact, in all the cases of the people that I can think of, that I know personally who have been on 0-hour contracts, they were the one that pushed for a 0-hour because they were the ones that asked for a 0-hour contract.
That's fair. But yeah, what did you think about the plan in general? It's quite ambitious.
Yeah,
it feels.
It's
There's no real meat to any of it.
My worry is that in true, when Angela Rayner comes on and says it, I believe it.
Well, that was one of the things I was going to say to you, is why was she the one?
Because when Keir Starmer says it, I believe they're going to U-turn on all of those things.
I genuinely think whether he believes that or not, someone's had a word with him and gone, here, you can't do the speech. We need it to be. And I actually think, to be honest, because there was a lot of rumblings leading into, quite for a while, up to the reshuffle in Labour,
Yeah.
that he was looking to get rid of Angela Rayner. And I think he's looked at the polls and gone, that's not going to go
She's more
down.
likeable than I am.
He's been getting rid of a lot of the left of the party, and I
Yeah.
think that would have been a bridge too far. So I think he's realised she's sort of had a demotion. Not really. They've sort of, because normally becoming deputy leader or deputy,
You're primed to take over.
yeah, but it's also considered a lower position, if you know what I mean. Like, it's not
It is.
considered as good as being
Chancellor.
yeah, or one of the actual ministerial positions.
I think I did see a thing in the reshuffle about the lady they'd appointed as shadow culture secretary. I don't know her name, but she was coming under a lot of flack because she admitted in an interview that she's never been to a football game or she's never seen a football game or something to that effect. And everyone was like, this is your sport and culture minister. And then it was pointed out in response that watching you read is like watching an old person. Like, no offense, bro, but you're
Is it distracting?
you're holding the phone like here, and your eyes are like, you're doing all this.
It helps.
Like, you've got to go to YouTube.
Do you know
to
what?
see it.
I've got the full list of their
Reshuffle.
cabinet, but I cannot find
Culture and sport.
culture and sport.
Do you want me to look?
Uh,
Oh my god, you pad.
okay, I'm padding. Do you know what though? I like a bit of the Ange. I think Angela Rayner, like, personally, I think she's too common in reality, but I love her as the leader of Labour. Like, her as Prime Minister is something I could believe in.
There's no way you can read that, is there?
Fangham Debonair.
But the whole thing
Is
was,
that their name?
yeah.
Fangham Debonair.
But she
That's
was-
the name of our culture
The
secretary.
criticism was that she
What a name. Fangham
she'd like
Debonair.
never been to a sports game, and it was like, but you're culture and sport, and it's like, yeah, but she also what she was she was a classically trained musician who played to a pretty high level.
Yeah.
So actually, her
And there's more to
she's-
culture than football
but
and rugby.
she's probably the most qualified person to be a culture secretary
yeah,
that we've ever had.
but we're not happy with it.
But yeah, because she doesn't like football.
Yeah, I mean, this is the assumption that Labour actually get in, but they've promised. I mean, it's difficult because they've not actually spelt out how policies,
Funding.
funding, and from what I've heard, the only reason Labour haven't done any of that is because, one, they're still costing their manifesto. Secondly, they don't want to release any of it until they absolutely have to, because they don't want any of the right-wing newspapers going after them.
Yeah, feeding them ammunition.
Yeah,
Do you know what made me I don't know why I thought of this. I'll tell you the link I did in my head. We mentioned funding.
yeah.
I watched a show, God, last year, whenever it was. I only watched a couple of episodes. It was all right. The Make Me a Prime Minister thing, or I Could Be Prime Minister.
Okay.
And they did this first
I
challenge.
don't remember what that was. I remember it was like
It was sort of like an
competition,
apprentice.
wasn't it?
Sort of like The Apprentice, and they got all these normal people in. You're not that normal.
Civvies.
If you go on telly saying, I think I could be a Prime Minister, you're not that normal.
Yeah.
But
You'd go on it.
yes, I would.
I just wanted to
But,
clarify that for the record. I probably would as well. It'd probably be a
But
laugh.
they, their first episode, they went, right, we want you to come up with an education policy.
Mm.
And we want you to come up with it, as in you've got to find the funding for it.
Right.
You're going to put it to, the public, and you've got to try and get them to be on board with it. So what is your policy? And that was, they split into two teams, and
Yeah.
they, like on The Apprentice, you get a leader elected of each team, and they are the Prime Minister that week. But they were, it was like the funding, and they were launched at a school, because obviously that's the best place to launch an education policy. And they got the press down, which they literally just had like 2 or 3 journalists to play the press, but they were asking them the questions that they would ask a normal politician, a normal Prime Minister. And they were asking this one guy about like the funding of it. and he was just flailing all over the place. And his team called like an emergency meeting. But if you and I are the press,
Yeah.
the meeting took place just behind the camera.
Yeah.
And the woman who was like the Karen Brady, the whatever his other name, I can't remember the bloke's name on the
Dominic
Apprentice.
Cummings. Claude.
The one who goes around taking notes.
Yeah, Claude.
Yeah.
What are you talking about, the black guy?
I don't know. I don't watch The Apprentice.
He did win The Apprentice, that guy, but Claude is normally the guy, but he was unwell this year.
Claude, the guy who goes around
Yeah.
and he just kind of stepped in. He was like, "Guys, what are you doing?" And they were like, "We need to sort out like he's not getting the point across about the funding." And they're like, "Okay, but this isn't like a drill. The press are standing right there,
Yeah.
and they can hear you having the arguments, and just the look on all their faces of just like." And immediately they turned to the bloke who's Prime Minister and was like, "You fucked up again." But it made me think, because actually, with regards to like the Gilly Kika thing and that is sort of like what's happening in actual politics.
Yeah.
Like there's a real, I don't care that
Like,
you're seeing behind the
Rishi
curtain.
Sunak somehow,
It doesn't matter. Opinion won't change.
like...
Inaction Man Keir called him this week in Question Time.
I haven't seen... Was it today?
It might have been.
Isn't it Wednesday normally, Prime Minister's
But he called
questions?
I saw it as a headline come up. He called him an action man.
Yeah.
Accurate.
Yeah. But, like, he's rewarded the wrong things. He missed an opportunity right at the beginning to remove Boris Johnson and show his power and control over the party, which he has none.
No. He's an elevated Boris
like
lackey.
the fact Grant Shapps has got a ministerial position again, despite the fact it's documented he's been a fraudster in the past, selling dodgy business schemes under a different name multiple times.
What do you make of the new Labour policies, though?
If we can trust it, what I'd like to believe is that Angela Rayner was the one doing the speech, because she'll be the one making sure they deliver it and that it's not U-turned.
Tell you what, the policy that I want to see most out of those ones that they've proposed there, it should be the living wage, and previously it would have been a couple of years ago.
It's the house building above anything else.
Oh no, but out of those jobs, in the workplace, it's fire and rehire.
Yeah,
that's the one that I would want to see implemented the most, because
and they mentioned wanting
soft
to protect workers' rights as well, didn't they?
Yeah, because it's happened unofficially a couple of times in the last few years, and the government went, "That's wrong, that's disgusting." And then the P&O thing happened, and they literally kind of changed the fucking world of the rules around it to go, no, that's all right. Unbelievably dirty.
Yeah.
It's the only, I know we've said it before, striking is the only thing we have.
The one thing I found odd, though, considering how distant Keir and the Labour Party have been in general from the unions during the last year or so, to stand there and say that they want to strengthen unions and create more unions and give people more collective bargaining power, I found a bit disingenuous.
Were they just keeping themselves away from the unions because they know how poorly it plays with the public generally?
I guess so, but I feel like we actually had a rare situation in the last year where, by
support
and
was
large, support was high. So that it feels like a missed opportunity,
particularly for the doctors and nurses.
Like if they had their finger on the pulse, they would have gone, "Well, actually, it's polling really well."
I mean, when the nurses went on strike, and the first time in like 100 years,
and then the promise Angela made yesterday, and that effectively Keir Starmer has made by letting her make it, it's backed up by the last year of supporting the unions. I listened to Mick Lynch be interviewed about it afterwards.
Love Mick Lynch.
Me too. And he was like, I want to be very careful. I don't want to sound negative. He was like, we're a long way from anything being real. Yeah. He said all of what they said was positive. He said they're not rolling back everything, in my opinion, that they should be rolling back. But he was like, it's a step in the right direction. He said if they're being sincere and they're being honest in their intentions, and it's the 100 days thing that I think is quite ambitious as well, because what that says to me is they think they're going to have a large enough majority that they can basically push through whatever they want in the first 100 days.
They probably will.
Yeah.
But
I hope so. And like, if they're being genuine, not to sound wanky, it's a big deal for a lot of
Step in
people,
the right
including
direction.
us, You know, we're part of that working labour class of people.
I wish I wasn't, and I don't mean that in a bad way.
To be honest,
God, I
with
wish I was
you,
elevated beyond it.
For the last 13 years since we entered the workplace,
It's gotten worse.
it's only gotten worse. And it's weird because I'm earning now per hour than I was in my highest position, but I have the least money.
You're worse off than you've ever been.
Yeah. So it's a really weird situation to be in. It's a really sad situation.
And also,
so if they're being honest, it's that I can't complain.
Also, like what you're being asked to do in most jobs, like I know that in some industries they do still exist, but more and more industries are peeling back the idea of like Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 work.
Yeah.
There's so many companies now that want you to work weekends. They want you to work evenings. They want you to work, and it's just they're just clawing away at what you've got. They want you to just be on call and go above and beyond, and it's not, you know, like you said, and so many companies as well, and I appreciate that's because their costs have gone up and whatever, but so many companies as well are asking you to do the job of 2 or 3 people.
Yeah.
Or they're giving your team, and you'll have experienced this the same as I have, they'll give you a job that realistically you need about 10 or you do it in hours. You need a certain number of hours to do it. So you might see a job and you go, we're going to need 100 hours to do that, theoretically.
Yeah.
And they go, great, here's 50. And you know, okay, 90 I can work with. It'll be tight. 80, we'll have to go. 50, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
But they want the same results for even less.
In all honesty, when I was a manager...
And that's like what I've seen happen more and more. And it's always happened. It always goes the way of the company rather than the way of the worker.
Yeah, always. And all companies constantly try and do is find ways of saving money. And the one surefire way to do it week in, week out is your labour. So the more you can get out of your stores for the least amount of labour.
Running on skeleton crews.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happens now. Like, even in the larger stores, you'd be amazed how few, like, people seem to think you just have a raft of people sitting out the back waiting to be asked to do something. It's just not the case. Like, and actually, I work in a store now that's over double the size of the last store I worked in. I'd only say we have 2 or 3 more people per shift than I did previously, which is mental. But yeah, companies are just they're not. What I find hilarious is when companies are like, in the company I work for, one of the big things has been customer service and why it's so low. And it's like, well, because staff are so stressed out running around trying to get their jobs done because they've got less time and more work to do than they ever have. They haven't got patience for customers or...
No, 100%.
And that's not fair on the customer, but it's also not a fair expectation on
like
people
the retail
that are working the hardest.
I know customers do come first and whatever, and serving customers comes first. But when you're being asked to do, 5 things, you've only got the time to do 3 of them.
Yeah.
And then a customer's asking you to do this, that, and the other.
Normally they're stupid fucking questions.
Yeah, you're like, with all due respect, I haven't got the fucking time to deal with you because I've got all of this to get through, and I've still got to do more, and I've still got to do that, and I don't have the time to point out to you why bananas are green or whatever fucking stupid thing you get. But what I was going to say, one of the things that I've noticed, and I'm not saying it's a gradual thing, it really has happened in the last 2 or 3 years, sort of since the COVID thing. It started a little bit before, but it's sort of, whereas when I first kind of joined the workforce, let's call it 10 years ago, it was 10, 15, but let's call it 10 years ago.
Yeah.
When someone left or quit or was let go, they were replaced. Now I'm finding when someone goes, particularly if they're not just like basic level, if they're like an intermediate manager, like a deputy or a shift leader or whatever, their role is absorbed by someone else's role.
Yeah.
Or if the company gets rid of 2 or 3 people, they won't look to hire 2 or 3 people. They'll look to hire one, and they'll just put all and they'll say, you absorb a bit, you absorb. I mean, my company, and I've meant many good things, many bad things, but one of the things that they did last year was they had a reshuffle where they went, right, you're going to do all of this, you're going to do all of that, and it's like, but you're still doing your sort of what you were doing before, but now you're in charge of all this stuff as well.
Yeah.
It's like, what? Sorry, what?
Yeah.
That's something that I've witnessed more in the last couple of years than it was when I joined the workforce.
It's a weird situation where, like, And people automatically assume that when a company's
It
doing
did happen. I just want to say
like
it did
that-
happen when I joined,
Yeah.
but it's way more common now.
But like people seem to think when, like in your head, you go, oh, if you get rid of a certain level of management because they're not necessary, then yeah, that freeing up money's great. But it's not being freed up to reinvest or to improve something else. It's just being trimmed to go to the top again. And it happens in every industry. And one of the worst things on the planet are self-scan tills. Like what they've done to the amount of people that have a job is horrendous. Like just working in a small store, we had 2 self-scans installed at first, and we lost, I think it was 40 hours a week in labour at first.
Which is a full-time member of staff.
Full-time member of staff and then some. We then, a few months in, it was just debilitating to the stores. So we emailed head office and were like, look, here's the situation. I think you need to look at this. It's far too many hours you've taken away. And then they responded and went, oh, fair. Like they basically responded saying, apologies, you're right. The amount is incorrect. We actually were supposed to subtract, I think it was 70 hours a week. And it was like, fuck. So we lost even more. And in my new store, they've installed a huge amount more. They've like doubled the amount we had, which now most of the time there's supposed to be 2 people manning that. Most of the time there's only 1 because they also have 5 other things to do on top of that. And then I remember asking the managers, I was like, so how many hours have we lost? And they're like, oh yeah, it's not too bad. And then I've been looking around at who's not in now most days, and we've got even less people than we did before working because the hours have been cut again. And it's just insane. So, but the thing is, I don't like talking about the Labour New Deal. I don't know how much of what they're going to do affects any of that other than just we'll be slightly better paid. Do you know what I mean?
Would say I would definitely the two things that I think are not crippling, that are
the hiring
getting to
refire.
people. I think the 2 things that are getting to most workers the most are, one, money. Like our money is not going as far. Like you said, I'm earning more than I was 10 years ago, but I'm worse off. I can afford a lot less than I could back then. Yeah. And it is workload. You are being asked to do so much. I mean,
which normally stems from, like with the NHS, the staffing. Do you know what I mean? It's investment in labour, which is the same in every company, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I say to, not to give too much away, but where I work with volunteers, and a lot of them are some of them are in a position where they're trying to get back into work, or they can't work and they're trying to, but some of them are in a position where they've had their working life, they're a lot older, they don't need to do this, that, or the other. And they've said to me a couple of times, when something's come up, they'll be like, well, you could just do this or do that. I'm like, look, I give plenty for the, me and another colleague have had this conversation with this one particular volunteer. It's like, I've given plenty for this company. Yeah. There is no way they're getting any more without giving me any more. No. Like, it's just not happening. I go so much, and sometimes you do take a few, I don't want to call them liberties, but you're like, there's got to be something. I give so much to this company, and I have given so much.
It's become a situation in most people's work lives where it's all about what you can give to the company you work for, which, like, look, there's a transaction there, you do your work, you get paid for it. But like when I was a manager, and I know you're in a higher position, it's the when you're off the clock, it's not off the clock. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know what it's like for you. You must get phone calls and texts.
Yeah,
and
but I'm off the clock,
and
I've told people, I've in the last few weeks, I've had this twice. I've had sent out a big company-wide thing where I've said, look, guys, check the rota, because if I'm not in, I'm not getting it. No. I was like, my phone is off, my email's off, I'm not doing it.
And it's good you've been allowed to do that
I said, I will normally start checking my stuff at like 8:30 in the morning. I was like, but don't take that for granted. I was like, assume it's 9, because I start at 9. Yeah. Okay, if I don't get paid before 9, I'm not working before 9. No. And that's like one of the volunteers likes to get there really early. And that's great for them. I'm like, I don't get paid till 9. No. I'm not coming here at 8. No. And I'm not going to sit around here when I could sit around at home. I'm not going to start work. I'm not giving them an extra hour of labour every day. No. Like, I don't care how petty that sounds, But I know I'm not quite at breaking point, but I'm at that point where it's like, I'm not giving any, I'm at that petty point.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not giving anymore, man. It's take.
Yeah.
And I've got to start taking something for myself. And
Yeah.
I don't think I'm alone in that. I think a lot of people are in that position.
No. And it's not a good position to be in. But there's, but the problem is most of us don't, and it's one thing I guess could help from their deal is that if they do create new unions and strengthen unions, we might have
better working conditions.
I hope that's a component of what they're going to do, is something decent with working conditions and workers' rights, because they are slowly getting eroded and
massively. And I don't even think it's that slow.
And employers are just like, I don't, like, for example, I'm going to say the company I work for now, if you were to look up online how long you're allowed between 2 shifts on the government website,
you reckon you guarantee you're in breach?
It's 11 hours. But apparently that is also up to the discretion of the company you work for.
Yeah.
So my company's 8 hours. And in my head, I'm like, feasibly, why would you want, if I've been in at 10 o'clock at night?
Why would you want me in again at 6 o'clock in the morning?
Why would you want that? I'm not going to be at the most rested and most
efficient
performance I can put in, because I'm not going to be. Because realistically, if you're on your, it can take you, an hour to get home.
Hour to get
an hour there. To chill out, maybe, when you get in from work.
Because you can't just go and go to sleep.
And then get up.
So you're probably getting 4 or 5 hours sleep.
It's insane. Absolutely insane.
Yeah, no, I'm 100% with you.
It got a bit awkward at work for a while, because I was like, I don't want to do that. I'm just, like, they put me in at 10 at night and then would put me in early the next morning, and I was like, I'd rather you just didn't put, I'd rather lose the money, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of people are at that point.
Yeah,
I do. Did you see the avocado toast guy? I don't know his name, but the guy who was the first one. He's an Australian businessman, CEO, who was one of the first person, one of the first people to do an interview and go, you should stop buying your avocado and toast, and that's how you'll afford a home.
Yeah.
That kind of spawned the whole avocado millennial thing.
Kirsty also.
He came out in an interview that day, and he said that I think unemployment should rise 50 to 60%. He said, because people are getting they want, they're not appreciating how much, they're like, oh, the employer needs me, but they're not appreciating that it's the other way around, that you need your employer. He said, and that needs to change. So employment needs to go up for people to get a bit more grateful. And as someone pointed out, when everyone was rightfully fucking dragging him for saying it, everyone pointed out, it was like, no, every CEO feels like that. He's just the one dumb enough to say it out loud.
Oh,
but
absolutely.
Every CEO feels like that. That's the reality of working life. And for everyone. Everyone listening to this is going through exactly the same thing.
What always baffles me is none of the people running, for example, a supermarket, have ever worked a day in a supermarket in their life, but yet make decisions about thousands of people's jobs, thousands of stores, that are quite stupid most of the time. That if you asked anyone working in the shop, would be like, that's just practically... I
mean, during COVID, I kicked up such a fuss so many times over the things that we're being told to do and not do, and I was just saying, it got to a point where I just said no. I was like, if the CEO wants to come and have that out with me, I will happily have that out, because he, with all due respect, he's not on the ground floor. He's not doing it. He does not know the stress and the aggro it causes. It's like, I'm not doing it. I'm not following those policies. You can write them up and tell them those are our policies, but I'm not following them. And the other thing, if everyone listening to this thinks back to what they do at work, particularly if you've been doing it a long time, if you think back to when you started, I guarantee one of these things is happening, if not all of these things. But one, your team is probably smaller than it was when you started.
Yeah.
No matter what industry, and whether you're in, finance and accountancy, whether you're in the welfare office running, checks, whether you're in a home office running background checks or whatever, I guarantee the team that you were in, no, not a guarantee, but there's a good chance that the team you're in is smaller than when you started, if you started
in most
5 or 6 years ago. 2, as a result of that, and even if not as a result of that, even if your team's the same size, you're probably being asked to do more work than you were when you started. And 3, even in, like I said, particularly if all of these things are happening, your team is smaller, you're being asked to do more work, each of you, and you've probably either been given no more money to do it, or you've been given a little bit of a pay rise, but the pay rise is not tantamount or equal to
Even
or equivalent
close
to
what,
the workload that you're being given doing. Oh, no, just the workload you're being
Yeah.
given. If you're being asked to do this much more work, you should be given an equivalent amount more money, but I guarantee
That's
you're not.
not how it works.
Yeah, so I guarantee you're all working for more. You're all doing more for less.
No, I think
basically.
that guy's completely out of touch. I think it's the complete reverse. I think
But he's not on his own.
No, I think all of them. I think the vast majority of people who run companies would feel that way. And the thing is, I sort of get it to a degree because we are just numbers on the screen to most of them. We're not someone they've ever had to shake their hand or look at them and look at what effects their decisions might have on people.
No.
So yeah, I don't think anyone should be allowed to run a company where they haven't done the lowest job at some
I
stage.
think you should be doing at least a month in the lowest positions before you're allowed to run
to
it.
get an idea of how things
I think if you're appointed as CEO, you should have to do
and not just
as a
like
build up to the
photo
appointment.
op when they show up.
A month,
a couple
like a
of
month
things on the shelf and
a month doing the actual job, or 2 weeks, but doing the
it
job
should be
long
part
enough.
of the interview process, I reckon.
Well, I don't know part of the interview, but
Well,
once
if they get the job,
once they appoint it and they go, look, we're going to appoint you CEO, what it should be is you're going to take charge a year from today or 6 months from today, but you're going to spend the next 6 months doing a different position in the company, and you're going to see what it's like.
Yeah.
And then you're going to be allowed to take over and make decisions on it.
Because you see it, I don't know how often you watch it, but have you ever watched Undercover CEO?
Yeah.
And just how much of an eye-opener it is for all of them.
These CEOs,
Because no matter
I know it's
how-
all staged and that, but they have no idea what's happening in their
No,
companies.
and like they could be, and some of them are like some of the nicest people you'd ever meet. They're not some horrible bastard at the top of a company that just wants to strip it for, like they're sometimes with these companies, they're people that have built it with their families. It's a big thing for them, and then they go on.
I mean, I saw one
the
where
bottom
they were
level and
having
they can't believe what's going on.
the system, the stock check system and whatever was like so corrupt, or not so corrupt, was so bad and unprepared for what was happening
Yeah.
that the store managers were basically having to perform like stock fraud every time they wanted anything. And the undercover CEO was really annoyed and really upset at first. And then, I don't know whether someone said something to him or not, but then they came back the next day and they were still annoyed and upset, but this time they were like, they said, you know, in their little bit to camera and their talking head.
To fix this is
No, well, yeah, they said, my anger was misplaced yesterday because I shouldn't be mad at them for performing fraud. I should be mad at me for giving them a system that means that they have to
commit
commit
stock
fraud.
Yeah.
And he, you know, but it's these people. I know, like I said, I know it's a show and I know it's for TV, but they do have. It shows you time and time again that they have no idea what it is like on the ground floor.
Yeah.
And that's my experience consistently. Like I said,
No,
you get
I
handed down things and they're like,
I
you need to do
agree.
this, and you're like, sorry, what?
Yeah.
And half the time you're going, is that instead of no, it's as well as, and you're like, well, that ain't happening, is it?
No.
You go, like, you know, for example, in your situation, like I say, because you do it with hours, you might be like, okay, and how many hours are we getting to do this? And they're like, well, none. You just got to make it work with the ones you've got. It's like, well, that's not happening.
And what companies have also started doing, like particularly in retail, is they cut your hours, and then say like you've had a bump in sales, or they suddenly have a job, like a big job they want you to do. They might suddenly give you a bunch of hours on the week it's happening. And then suddenly the store's like, oh, do people want to do overtime? And because people are so pissed off of having their hours cut, they just go, nah, you're all right, actually. I don't want to drop everything last minute.
I remember when I was in the
in.
clothes shop, and we used to get promotions come down generally on a Tuesday night, and they'd have to be live. They'd come down at like 4 o'clock on Tuesday, and they'd want them live Wednesday morning.
Yeah.
And it'd be like, and I'd always say to the guys, I'm like, look, I am asking you because I have to ask you, but I was like, say no. Don't just do it to help me out.
Yeah.
I said, because don't care about me. I said, it's care about the company. I said, because I assure you, I'm not going to suffer the flack for this. Because when they turn around and say, and they nearly always did, come Wednesday, I nearly always had a chat with my area manager. We went, how comes it isn't like, how comes the promotion isn't live yet? And I'd always say, because you've given me like no time and no one to do it with.
Yeah.
I was like, it's me and one other person trying to prep the whole store, and we've got like an hour of work to do it in. But that's not
It's not feasible.
realistic. That's
No.
not going to happen. And he's like, well, can't you get people to stay behind? I'm like, "But why should they? To help us out because we didn't prepare properly." And when I
Yeah.
say we, I mean
The
you,
company.
the company. Yeah, it's like, what? Why should they be covering our asses? But that's one of the things that I think people, bosses and companies have relied on for a long time, is this A, goodwill, and B, a sense
Fear
of
people
work,
as well.
a sense of work ethic and pride in work. It's like,
Yeah.
let me get this clear. I have a
I
work
got
ethic and I'm
abused
proud.
in that
I'm
regard
proud.
for so long, man.
I'm proud of my workplace and whatever. But like I said, I don't start till 9 and I clock
Yeah.
off at 5 and I don't think about the place. I'm not
Yeah,
staying behind to get shit
I
done.
learned that so much longer ago. I cared far too much about, like, I thought I was building a reputation within the company I was working for. And the minute I said no once, it all went tits up, basically. And I made other mistakes as well. But by and large, what started it on a downward turn and then what was the final nail in the coffin came back to me when I'd said no for the first time, because I'd pissed the wrong person off who then just sabotaged any chance I had of advancement going forward.
Yeah, don't give anything extra for. I
No,
know that's a
like-
really negative way, but that's
No, I've
where we're
to
all
be
at the
honest with you,
moment.
until employers start valuing their employees, absolutely.
I think on the really small
Like,
companies.
don't get me wrong, I go into work, I work hard, I do whatever I'm asked to do, I don't kick up a fuss. Occasionally I get annoyed at certain stuff, but in general, by and large, I don't get stressed about the work or what I
think
need to do.
For really small companies, there probably is a sense of that stuff going on, because I think staff retention is important, because if you're that small an operation, you haven't got time in the running of your business to then be training up someone.
Yeah.
But also, when there's only a small number of you doing it, like I'm talking under 10 people running a company, you know how important each and every one of them is to running of the company,
Yeah.
and you value them. You know that you need them,
Mm.
and so you're more willing to give them what you can to
Yeah.
make sure that they stay and then make sure that they keep the company running smoothly and efficiently.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're the bigger you get, as you said, the more you just become a number on the screen, and therefore
And
they don't.
detached you get from it.
You know, when you've got 10 or fewer people, just to stick with that arbitrary number, the CEO knows what it's like on the ground floor.
Mm.
They know what it takes to keep the business going, so they're more invested in keeping it going.
Yeah.
But when the bigger you get, the more there is a disconnect between the top and the bottom, and therefore they're not as keen to keep people. They're not as
No.
keen to incentivize you to stay.
And, like, to be honest with you, when these people do come and visit your place of work, because you do get these occasional royal visits from the higher ups to come and see the peasants, and like the amount of times I've been a part of panicked stores rushing to make everything perfect, and I cannot for the life of
Because
me
then what happens is they
understand
walk by
why.
and they go, well, that's perfect, and you didn't have anyone to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, there
'em
couldn't
see.
be a more stupid idea
Let
on
'em
the
see.
planet. And I remember there was one day my store manager was abroad, and out of nowhere we had this big visit at my store, so I'm in charge, and it wasn't going to be ready in time. I knew I couldn't get it in. I busted my ass, but I just didn't have the staff, didn't have the time, couldn't do it on my own. And they ended up not turning up. But I actually, in the end, wanted them to see it how it was, so I could be like, look, you're not going to be happy with the store today, and it's because of X, Y, and Z. I've done X, Y, and Z, but, you know, with what you guys give us, it's not possible.
Yeah, no, I've done it with my own CEO a couple of times, where they've come in and said, it's normally they come in and they say, how comes this is like this? And that's like, I'm like, because, and with all due respect, I'm in a unique position where I'm quite special. You know, usually people are just sort of commenting on how good I look, so I don't have much time for much else. No, I'm in a unique position where the workforce I'm working with are predominantly unreliable as a general, like a lot of them. Not all of them, but
Yeah.
it is a common feature of the people I'm working with. But that's why I always say, I'm like, paid staff, they're not unreliable because they have to be.
Yeah.
Because if they're not, it's
They
a
don't
lot
get
easier
their
to get rid
money.
of them. And therefore, it was like, I mean, I recently put in a pitch for a Saturday kid, because one Saturday I'd had to ask someone to come in because I was a bit light anyway because of holidays. So they came in. I had them. I had me, and I had one other person. Now, we were also running a special promotion where we were trying to do a solidarity fundraising thing.
Okay.
So normally in my shop, you need minimum 4 people on a Saturday.
Yeah.
It gets busy. You need to cover lunches and stuff. But while we're doing this promotional thing, really, you need another 2. So you need 6.
Yeah.
So we had 3 of us. We were expected to do the normal shop and the other thing.
And then the solidarity.
That was when I just started feeling like crap. So this was literally like the other weekend.
Yeah.
So I was not feeling up to it at all, and I couldn't be near anyone. So
Yeah.
I'm quite limited in what I can do because I can't interact with people because I'm fucking...
Yeah. You're contagious.
I'm very contagious. And I just said, like, because I had 3 people, I had 1 person just not turn up and 2 people phone in sick. And it was like, look, give me another Saturday kid. I mean, there's Saturday kids as well with the current wage system, and I completely disagree with this. But they don't even get paid as much as someone over 24.
No.
I think it's 24 and over. So you hire a 16-year-old and you're paying them like half of what you're paying an adult.
Yeah. They get work experience.
It's shit. I disagree with it. If you're doing the job, you should be paid for the job. That's where I stand on it.
Yeah.
But it's like, give me them, and then they're going to turn up.
No, do you know what though?
And then I can at least rely on...
Most of the people of that age I've ever worked with have not been good at anything that they do. So I sort of agree with not
But they
paying
turn
them
up.
the full wage.
Mine have always been...
Okay. No, all of the young people I've ever worked with...
They've been good as well, to be fair. We've had some good ones.
I've had some... Apart from maybe a couple, I would say 99% of the ones I've worked with have been pretty shit, to be honest. The work ethic isn't there usually. That could be a reflection of the work I do and how they value it themselves.
No, but the ones we've had have generally been pretty good. And like I said, what it means is, so then on each Saturday you have 2 staff members.
Yeah.
And I was like, I need 3 or 4 so that if no one else turns up, I've got 3 or 4 people in. But going back to the original point, I needed someone to see how shit it was.
Yeah.
In order to say, this is what I need.
I don't think companies do that enough. I don't think businesses do that enough.
I mean, when I was
retail definitely doesn't do it enough.
No, I mean, retail, when I was in the clothes shop, and literally we got rid of our assistant manager, and I stepped up and did the role just because it needed doing.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, we're not going to hire anyone because you guys are still hitting your targets, you're still hitting your numbers, and that's the worst thing we could have done. Whereas I'm thinking, look, let's just keep ticking over, let's just keep doing it. That's the worst thing we could have done.
Yeah.
Hitting our targets was the work, because then they were like, well, you can just do it. And it was like, and that was when I left, because I said, well, look, okay, if I'm going to do the job, then you're going to pay me to do the job.
Yeah.
And you're going to train me to do the job. I said, there's a lot of stuff that I'm not able to help out with because I don't know what I'm doing. So, but I'm not doing this shit for free.
No.
And they went, yeah. And then after about 3 weeks, again, I had another meeting with the area manager and said the same things. And he said, well, yeah. He said, it's definitely... And I was like, look, I don't want to be like a dick and put an ultimatum. But I was like, I've been doing this job for like 2 months now.
Yeah.
Which doesn't seem like a long in the grand scheme of things, but I was probably
long enough.
Probably like 20 or something at the time. So But I was like, yeah, I've been doing this one for like 2 months now. I've not been paid for it. I've not been trained for it. And there's no realistic date of where it looks like I might start being paid for it or start being trained for it. So it's like, unless something materializes, like an actual contract appears in front of me in the next couple of weeks,
I'm off.
I'm going to go. And again, there was all that talk, yeah. It didn't happen. It was like, well, I'm going to go then. I'm not. Yeah. This isn't one of those things where I'm going to bowl over and go, oh, no, they're being really nice about it. It's like, no, I can read between the lines. I know when someone's just saying something and when they're doing something. My message
to anyone now would be, unless you're in a really good situation, look after you. Like, at all times, just make sure you're looking out for you and your best interests, particularly if you work for a big company, because more likely than not, they don't give a flying fuck about you. So anytime you feel bad about phoning in sick, don't. Anytime you need to look after yourself, do it.
When I first joined the workforce, I did so much extra shit, and it wasn't at all because I was like trying to build a reputation, because it was because I really liked the manager that I was working for.
Yeah,
and I wanted them to do
times as well. I
wanted to help them out.
Yeah, no, I completely get that, because there can be, particularly if you're going into management yourself, there's like you become your own group in management, don't you? Like you do become slightly separated from, which is a weird experience when you go from being normal to management.
Talking about those promotions, there was a couple of people that did quite like me, as odd as that is to believe.
Yeah.
And they did. The first few times I asked, they said yes, and that's why I'd started selling them. Don't say yes. Like, I'm asking you because I've got to ask you. But I was like, don't say yes. I was like I said to you guys earlier, I was like, don't worry about me. I'm not gonna get stressed out with it. I'm not gonna feel the flack of this. I mean, it turns out I did, and I was actually quite depressed in that role.
Yeah.
But that was something I didn't realize until like a couple of years later. In retrospect,
think the underlying message here is just don't go into management.
Oh, 100% don't.
It's not worth the extra money because it's normally a nominal.
And there's no extra money. You think there's going to be
increase.
extra money,
But you look at like, there just isn't really.
Do you remember the first time you found out like what your boss was getting paid?
Yeah.
And did you think like, is that it?
Yeah, I mean, it's weird in retail because the gap between an assistant manager,
Not in charity.
and a manager can be quite massive.
Yeah.
So I've had managers, and like it was weird. Like working for the co-op, they bought a company called Summerfield, so they had a lot of store managers
Old contracts.
that were on old Summerfield contracts, and some of these store managers were on over 50 grand a year, managing small shops. It was mental. So like I've had a couple of store managers that were ex Summerfield, so they were on 30, 40 grand more than I was a year. And it was like, fuck me. I've had other managers that were on 10 grand more a year. But I know in bigger stores, store managers north of 70 grand a year.
Because I remember where I am finding out that my boss, because also you assume like I can do what I do, and I've said to you before, I've looked this up. Most of the jobs posted for what I do in the same industry are about 5 or 6 grand more than what I'm on.
Yeah.
And when I first found out my boss, I was on about 18.5, which was like literally just north of minimum wage when I started.
Yeah.
For the hours I was doing. And I remember finding out my boss was on like 24, and I just naturally assumed for all the work that she did,
She must be earning
she must
loads.
be on at least 30, maybe more. I know it's a
Yeah.
charity, so I reined it in. I wasn't like, she's not going to be on like 50, although for what she does
She should be.
and how well she did it, and still does it, she just does it in a different location. She absolutely could and should be on that money. I just remember thinking like, is that, and now I'm a peer of hers, and it's kind of like,
Also, we know how
God,
much you're earning.
not that,
No,
just under that,
really.
and I had to fight for that.
Wow. But the thing is, do you not think though, getting that experience, you could then go work
Yeah, oh,
for
definitely,
another
and
company in a similar role and earn?
I'd be lying if I said I hadn't looked at
Yeah.
other things. The only thing that kind of stops me is that my problems could be worse because I'd have even fewer members of the workforce, because I know that most charity places rely on volunteers, and I know that one thing that's gone down in the last few years, we did this whole thing at the Retail Association, at a National Assembly actually for our company last year. Yeah, so one thing that's gone up, like charity shops are not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Because people are harder cash. They like a bargain. They like getting things that you can't get anywhere else. And people at the other end of the pay scale like to feel like they're giving back.
Yeah.
So charity shops are not going anywhere, but volunteers are going down. Unfortunately, obviously, people with
I imagine
failing
people
health
can't afford to.
and people who previously could afford to volunteer and now
Can't
having to
afford
find
to,
part-time work.
yeah.
You know, even retirees are having to get back into the workforce because they can't afford it. Their pension is not allowing them to live.
That scares the shit out of me.
Yeah. So anyway, so the point is, I'd look at that and think, and like one of our shops next door, there's like a whole parade of charity shops, and like next door is hardly ever open because they've never got the volunteers.
No.
Like it was just, there was a period where it was just closed 4 days for 3-4 days of the week.
Yeah. Well, all we can do, bro, is pray that Labour's New Deal
works,
that Sir Keir Starmer between now and whenever this next general election is, doesn't do a massive U-turn and decide to deregulate most industries.
Yeah, and just give bankers bonuses and
like Liz Truss did.
Liz Truss, old lettuce
Let's
lady.
lift the caps on bankers' bonuses because they're the ones struggling in this.
They are
economy.
struggling. I know a banker once.
And
He only
reducing
went on
amount of tax.
only went on
the tax
4
bracket
holidays
they're
last
paying.
year, and one of them had to be to a a 4-star hotel.
Oh no!
One of the holidays he had to fly economy. I'm just saying, I think they're struggling.
Does that work?
Yeah, it's a car crash economy.
A shock. That didn't work, did it?
Fine, sure.
It's going to be a bumpy ride.
Unless the bankers get their caps lifted, it's going to be tight.
Yeah, that's how we like it. And I
don't want to end on that.
I think that's a
I
part.
don't want to end on that.
Well, no, but we'll end as we always do on the socials, bro, which you do so well every week. And they will appear here on the screen
You
and
just
out of Jake's mouth.
stroking my ego because you know that's what gets me to do anything.
Yeah.
Do it again. I might.
What was it I said? You
Just
do
say
it so
something.
well.
Just say something nice about me again, and I might.
I love that Hawaiian shirt.
It's a good look, right?
Yeah.
Do you know what? It pairs well with the white shorts, the black
Agreed.
shirt and the white shorts.
You don't have to tell me, bro.
And the brown belt. It all works.
I dig it.
Can you dig it?
Sucker.
Yes, you can.
Oh,
There's so many ways you can go with those things.
yeah. I was thinking of Booker T. You went Robbie.
I'll tell you where you can go.
Tell us.
You can go to Instagram.
Shit, I'm on
You
the
can
edge
go
of my
to
seat.
TikTok. And you can type in @CrossingSwords_podcast, and you can find some of the finest, hottest content
Yeah.
on the internet. It's a little undiscovered gem that you are
Yeah.
going to love. And I'll tell you something that you're going to love even more. You can go to Twitter, or X, as it's now officially known. But let's be fair, it's Twitter. And you can type in, go to the search section, go @SwordsCrossing.
Yeah.
And you will find
Us.
one of the finest little accounts that has ever graced the platform.
It's now described as two little Matrix men.
Because we were
Two dirty
branded
little Matrix
we were
men.
branded as Matrix Men.
Yeah.
I
I'm
still don't know
agreeing
what that
with it.
means.
Me neither, but I like it.
Yeah.
We're Matrix men. How can anyone listen to me podcasting, talking about conspiracies, whether it's the McCanns murdered Maddie, the Queen had Diana, or whatever it, like 9/11 was an inside job, and go, that guy's plugged into the Matrix? Do you know what I mean?
Well, how can it? I mean, you're right, because you're their kind of people.
Yeah. That's what I'm
But
saying.
who can listen to me? No, seriously, who can listen to me? Who's
You're
made it this
definitely
far?
plugged into the Matrix. You said vaccines don't give immunity.
I mean, like, sorry for
I
taking.
literally Googled it when you left that day, and it was like, no, they do.
No, they don't.
Yeah, they do.
They die.
The
Honestly,
literal description from the NHS was they provide. I mean, with your explanation afterwards, but that is how they provide.
that's fine. But then the NHS is full of shit because
All
I
right.
know that's
Well,
part of your
that's
conspiracy.
mental.
that they're not telling us the truth. But a basic science lesson will tell you that is not the case.
Fair enough. Well, you're
This is going to be
disagreeing
one
with
of those.
science.
This is going to be one of those political things where they're like, "No, we did fulfil. It does provide immunity." It's like, can you define immunity? And they're like, "Well, under our definition," and you're like, "Right, that's not."
No, but why are you
immunity.
getting to decide what immunity is?
I would say immunity. My definition is you are incapable of catching that thing. If
And
you're
some of
immune
them
to a
do
thing.
provide that.
They don't provide that though. That's just not something a vaccine can provide. Like, how does a vaccine work? By introducing the thing into your system, and your body adjusts to it. So the thing can still come into your system, and your
Yeah, but
body's
it doesn't infect you.
better fighted for it, but it'll still get you.
Not
It can still
necessarily.
get you. Anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about.
You're
Matrix
disagreeing
Man.
with science.
Matrix Man.
You are the Matrix Man.
That's what they call me.
Yeah.
And literally that is what someone called both of us.
Both
But
of
they
us.
called me a Matrix Man. So you've done that. You've gone to Instagram, you've gone to TikTok, you've gone to
You've
Twitter.
watched us argue
You are
about
now-
vaccines.
You are now feeling like you are plugged into, forget the Matrix, you're plugged into like the coolest, hottest little bar on the internet, the hottest corner of the internet imaginable, and you are tapped into it, and you think, where can I get more of this content? I'll tell you where. You can go to Facebook and you can just search for Crossing Swords and you
Yeah.
can find us. You know what our logo is because you've got us on Instagram, you've got us on Twitter. Find us. Click that subscribe button, click that follow button. I don't know what Facebook does anymore. I haven't been on Facebook for a while. I don't know. What do you do when you like do you like a page still?
You like
You
it,
follow it?
it. It's both, I think.
Okay, well, you can like the page and you can follow the page, and now you're really in it. Now you're really there, and you think, do you know what? This is good content. This is good stuff, and
I want to watch the whole
I'm
thing.
alive, but I want to see it.
I want to see the magic
I want to
happen.
see a full episode. I want to be able to just skip to the bits that I like
Yeah.
in an episode and watch what's happening, because sometimes we do visual content, you know, and I'm not just talking about the OnlyFans. I know we promote the OnlyFans a lot on here,
No, but we're just nice to look at.
but there's so much visual stuff going on. You've got these. You've got this. Okay?
I've got my sword that I keep
He
playing with.
fondles his sword. That sounds good on the air, but think how good it would look. You might be disappointed because you're expecting something else. But let me just tell you, if you want to do that, you go to where you're listening to this and you follow the link in the description, or you go to YouTube and you type Crossing Swords and the name of the episode. Don't type Crossing Sword, name of the episode. Type Crossing Swords and whatever the name of the episode is. For example, you might type Crossing Swords and I don't know the name of any
Pegging
of our
or
episodes.
poverty.
Pegging or poverty, or Crossing Swords, pegging or poverty, and that's how you find us. And you know what you do when you're there? You hit the like button, you hit the subscribe button. You know how to do it because every YouTuber tells you how to do it. If you don't know how to do it, go and watch any YouTube video, and they'll tell you.
how to do
They
it.
will tell you how to do it. That's like the one thing you're not short of an instructional guide on. And now you are
But
completely.
if you're on YouTube now, it's literally just below the screen.
It's like here.
Yeah. It's underneath us.
And now you are truly
Part
of the Crossing Swords experience, of the Crossing Sword family. And if you wanted to do just one more thing, if you just wanted to do 2 more things,
Tell Jake he's wrong about vaccines.
do you want to do 3 more things? If you want to do 1 more thing, you can leave us a review and a comment wherever you're listening this to.
Yep.
And if you want to tell us what you think we should be talking about, if you want to tell us whether we're right or wrong, you can email us.
I forgot about the email. We've been going for a
How
while.
can they email us?
They can email us by opening up whatever device they choose to email.
Any device.
On. Open up your mail app, or type it in. Yahoo, Gmail,
If
whatever.
you're on a
you like.
web-based, you can use web-based, that's fine.
Log in, and then hit new message. Type in CrossingSwords19@gmail.com. Send us your message, and Bob's your uncle and Fanny's your aunt.
They'll get it. And then now you're not just a part of the family,
You're in our DMs.
you're a creator. You're part of the team.
Yeah,
And that feels pretty cool to me.
it does.
Happy with the socials?
I was quite pleased with that.
Sticking it?
Yeah, not bad.
Not bad. That's
Not
I've
bad.
poured my heart and soul into it.
I praised you
And that's what I
before.
get.
Do
Oh,
you know what I
you've
mean?
got to neg me. Is that it? A little bit of praise, a lot of negativity.
Yeah, to take you to even higher levels.
You've
do
got
you
to
know
like
what I mean?
sandwich neg me.
Yeah.
No, that sounds like it should be a thing. I don't like that.
Let you eat a sandwich and tell you how fat you look while you eat it.
That's, yeah, but we do that.
Yeah. But that's our kink, and we don't kink shame on this podcast.
We don't,
Unless
it
it's
gets me
rape
going.
fantasies.
No, I don't kink shame that.
I do.
I think it's just not.
Shame.
It's just not my thing.
No, it's not mine, but shame on them.
No shame.
Shame.
No shame.